Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, we're back for another great session. You and I have we just talked about this. We have so many things. We could do 40 podcasts on all the things we talk about in one.
I know.
So we're going to try really hard.
I just was thinking when you were saying that too, our poor listeners are probably like, oh my gosh, hold on, pause, back up, pause, trying to write it down, all the stuff.
Yeah, trying to take notes. Well, what I tell them to do is do Otter AI and let Otter AI take the notes.
Yes, great idea. Yeah.
Awesome. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so we just got back from Austin and for Keller Williams Mega Agent Camp. But one of our both, I think mine and yours, favorite things about Mega Camp is what's called the CEO Summit that Gary Keller himself puts on. And it is just, it's always such a great thing. He brings loads of guests in to speak and authors and all kinds of stuff. But this time he opened with Jay Papasan and Jason Abrams talking about tough times. And I think you've been having similar conversations, but it's like almost every person that I'm talking to right now is going through tough times.
Yeah.
Or they've just got, a challenge, or they're nervous about what's happening in the industry, or, just whatever it might be. They're just really, there's a lot of tough times going on. So Gary had us read a book several years ago. I think I don't remember, but he talked about, Robert Schuller. Yeah. Tough times don't last, but he says, but tough people do. And so, and actually I love this year, he took it a step further and said, tough people don't just survive, they thrive.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went through, and he talked a lot. We can share our notes from it, but just about like, how do you become tougher and what does it mean to be tough? And I love what they opened with, which is being anti-fragile, like the opposite of, tough would be fragile. And so how do you become anti-fragile? And he said, it's just the anti-fragile is the opposite of being fragile. And it's a concept that describes anything or anyone that isn't fragile, because fragile things are easily broken or damaged. And so when you're trying to be, tough or get through tough times, you want to be the opposite of fragile.
Well, what I loved about the whole concept of this, because I heard all this in a different way, and I think it's because I'm, I lead leaders. So I get to hear from the leaders when they're in pain, when they're stressed, when they're, when they're fragile, all of those things. And so what I loved about the message was, to me, it changed your concept about stress and tough times. We're always so shocked when we get stressed and tough times. But the truth is, when you change your whole mindset about stress and tough times, which is what he was doing here, I think you receive it better and you handle it better. Oh, tough times are just part of it. How do I get myself so that I'm not anti-fragile? So I'm not fragile. So I am anti-fragile, right? How do I prepare myself? What do I need to do so that I handle those things better? And I think in anything, like whether you use anything physical or anything else, the way that it gets better is you just get more of it. And that's the last thing we want to do is, please give me more trouble, Yep. But it's how we get better.
Yeah. Well, he said, I'm just looking back through my notes. He said, the thing is, tough times are guaranteed. Like crap happens. They used another word. But he said, if you live long enough, anything can happen. And it probably will happen. With 8 billion people on the planet, a 1 in a million occurrence literally happens to 8,000 people every single day. So like stuff's just going to happen. And you just have to be able to, have the wherewithal and the tactics to be able to get through it, and be tough. And, I was thinking, do you remember he talked about this? I'm trying to find it. Oh, he said there are some things that benefit from shock. Yeah. And do you remember at the I Love Coaching Summit last year when Dr. Ryan talked about like stress is actually some form of stress is good for your body? Yes. That's what I kept thinking of the whole time he was thinking about this, because we automatically think that it's going to shut us down and give us anxiety or freak us out. But sometimes it can actually be good for you. Like there are some things that can benefit from shock because you get more like resilient.
Yeah, it says some things benefit from shocks. They thrive, grow when exposed to volatility, disorder, stress, risk, and uncertainty. Anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better.
Yep, totally.
This reminds me of something. I went to a counselor. I've been to a counselor a lot of times, but I went to a therapist a few years ago. Remember Diana and I did the brain scan.
Yes, Dr. Daniel Amen.
Yes. So part of what they recommended for me was for post stress disorder or something, whatever.
PTSD.
PTSD. There you go.
Yeah, that's when you did that eye thing, right?
Yeah, it's called the EMDR. It can be an eye thing or it can be a little shocker thing or whatever. I don't know.
Yep.
Whatever you choose, whatever. So that was part of my protocol, along with 40 sessions of hyperbaric chamber, which I could never figure out 40 days in a row or anything. So that didn't work. But I did do the EMDR. But what was interesting, Dana, is what came up. And I think for a lot of people, you might have to do some internal work to figure out.
Yeah.
And what came out during that was we were programmed on how we handle stress. So when I kind of went back and looked at all of it, as a kid, for some reason, I took on the responsibility, the shame, the whatever was going on, right? So that gets programmed into you. And all of a sudden, when stress happens, and I'm like, God, I was trying to explain, my nerves just get on fire. Yeah. And I immediately start freaking out if I can't figure out how to, get control of it quickly. Yep. That was probably one of the best things I could have ever done, because you know what it did is it rewired how I respond the minute a stressful situation happens.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And Anna and I were talking about this the other day, because we had a stressful situation, but here's the thing. The truth is it was more her stressful situation, because I've learned to keep between me and this big stress people,
Wait, can we pause the podcast and you share how you've done that? That's what I need to do.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's part of my protective mechanism. I've learned that the higher 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 feet I get, and the better I get people around me, they're like a shock absorber. They get the shock and I get the reverberation of the shock, but it's not the same. My nerves don't immediately get on fire and, oh my God, I got to fix this and all that stuff. So that
honestly, that's so true though, because I'm remembering now, Linda, like as a team leader, when an agent would leave my office, oh my gosh, like I just would want to like sling my body over the bridge. I mean, if it was something that I cared about, just so horrible. And as the OP, yes, it still affects me, but it's blocked a little bit. It's not the same. Yeah.
Well, and in between there was a pattern that was happening. And this happened to me really in real estate. Oh my God, every bump in the road.
Yeah.
I'm no wonder that I can't keep cortisol levels low and all those things, because my body has just been on whatever that one stressor is that is not a good one, because I'm so wired to work like that. But one of the reasons I always say I hit that ceiling in real estate, 12 years in the business, thousands of transactions, is because I took everything so seriously, right?
Yeah.
And now looking back, I didn't have a good mechanism to not go to that place of shame and guilt, and I must have done something and all those things that I was going to, right? So one of the things I think people should really investigate is how are you responding the minute trouble hits, right?
Yeah.
And can you go back and do some rewiring so that you handle that differently? It's so funny because I always compare it to Jimmy. Jimmy don't get his nerves on fire.
I know, because remember 2 or 3 years ago, one of your New Year's resolutions was be more like Jimmy when it came to that. And I remember that and Jimmy doesn't. And Adam's kind of like that. Like, and I'm like, are you not fired up right now? And he's like, no, I can't control it. And I'm like, what do you mean? But aren't you like a little bit like upset? He's like, not really. I mean, like they're just wired different.
Well, and you wonder, okay, is that because he's on the outer rim of the situation he's explaining to you, or is he's front line of it? See,
Yep.
front line is the real test.
Yep.
I can help anybody else go navigate through it. The ones I was struggling with was when it was front line and me.
Yep.
Okay,
So
you
true.
got the problem. You're the one that's going to have to solve it. Now I'm freaking out, right?
Yeah.
I got to
Yep.
get this solved as fast as possible. Get myself out of this horrible place I'm in. That kind of stuff. But I'm saying, really going and doing that EMDR really helped me rewire
Yeah.
that. And at least, like my counselor said, at least now you're aware
Yeah.
of what you do and why you do it, right? And so
Yep.
now that's the first step, because for years I wasn't even recognizing it. I just was like, nerves on fire, house is on fire. God, I got to do something,
Yeah.
and
I'll
just
never forget. I remember when you told me one time after, I think you had done the, how many times did you do that? The EMDR thing?
I don't know, 8, 10, 12, something. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Okay. I remember like when you were halfway, you'd done like, I don't know, 3 or 4. It might have even been on a podcast. And you said, I think it's working. I just had a really big situation happen today. And you were like, and I responded totally different than what I normally would. And I was like, man, that must be working then.
Yeah. It's interesting. I never, you don't think that stuff is, but it
Yeah.
does. So I would say, here's the thing. Number one, let's look at stress differently. Let's understand it's making something in us stronger, but you do have to have a healthy way of how you get through that initial shock of it and things like that, because I do.
Well, that's such a great point, Linda, because one of my biggest takeaways from Gary and them talking about the tough times was this one note. And he said, it actually was on one of the slides, in a career of 50 years, which most people are probably going to have, if they're lucky and healthy and blessed, they're going to have a 40, 50-year career. In a career of 50 years, you'll most likely go through at least 5 booms and 5 busts. So you have to approach your life and your business in such a way that you thrive throughout the good times and not the bad times. And so the advice you're giving is so good. If you can do the underwork and figure out, why you respond that way, or how you can, because if you know that you're going to have a great long career and you're going to go through probably 5 times where you're like, holy crap, what is hitting the fan? Then you're better prepared to be able to deal with it. I was actually talking to somebody today, and they were saying, I was telling her the story of us going to see Dr. Henry Cloud, because she just had a major bust, like just huge business and personal life bust, and it had to do with a family member, and it's just been a mess, quite frankly. And she said, I went to a therapist, and the first thing the therapist told me to do was go read the book Boundaries and then come back for the next session. And she said, I learned so much about myself by reading the book that it enabled me to be able to figure out how to handle the situations better. And she's like, now she said, it was so bad. She was like making herself just sick, like in the hospital over it. And she said, once she kind of did the work to figure out what it was, she's like, now I feel like I'm tougher and can handle so many other things because of that. And I was like, yeah, that's how it happens typically.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this in one another podcast, but I want to reiterate, when things are tough, you don't want to make life-changing decisions. Right. I think you got to get through that, figure out how to get through that to the other side, and then evaluate, because I think we do a knee-jerk emotional response when we're in the middle of the trauma and the trouble and all the things. But if we can get past that and look back at the situation, then we can make really good decisions about, okay, 1, how do I never get in that situation again? 2, what do I need to change about myself to never be in that situation again? And then 3, now what do I want to do moving forward? Do I want to start to lay a plan to get out of these situations, or what do I want to do?
Yeah. Well, and remember, he said toughness is the ability to absorb the licking and keep on ticking. And so that's goes with not making a big change. Like, you're going to have to just absorb it and keep on trucking sometimes through it, rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to make this big change. He said, tough people will always respond the best. That really hit me too. Like, the tougher you are, the better response you have. And I feel like sometimes when you're not emotionally tough, you come with an emotional response to things. And that's like, how before we've talked about things that trigger us, like that's triggering to me, like a super emotional I don't know, just like too much emotion in a response triggers me sometimes.
Yeah, it does. And that's a great point. Figure out what triggers you in those situations, especially if you're going to be a leader. You're going to have people around you that are experiencing the same trouble that you're experiencing, and how, and that's interesting because I've noticed lately with several people that I'm trying to lead. Man, the first thing they do is want to make decisions from an emotional place. And I just don't ever think that's the best decision.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
It's their first instinct. And then usually words come out of their mouth and you can't take them back, or you can, and it's going to be hard. I mean, so I think if we could learn to just, understand the difference between reaction and response. My reaction, yes, is going to be more emotional, but my response really needs me to give myself some space.
Yeah.
And think through what's a good decision here. Not necessarily, and I don't necessarily think your first one is always the best, because it's usually, filled with emotion.
Yeah. Heather has to remind me this all the time. Now I've gotten better at it, but a great lesson I learned from Bill Haggard was the 24-hour rule. Like, always evoke the 24-hour rule. And I remember, he would always, like, something would happen and he would say, I'm not making a decision on that. I need 24 hours because I'll make a wrong, quick decision. And that's always proved to be pretty true. Like, just gather yourself and your thoughts and calm down for 24 hours and then respond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, in trouble, and I don't remember if Gary mentioned this or not, but sometimes the best thing you can do is not stand on the sideline, because that's where it's like scary. Jump on in. Go ahead and get in and start even if you just kind of fail your way forward with it a little bit, you're better off than staying on the sideline worrying about it and thinking, oh God, how do I do this? But go ahead and get into the middle of it, start trying to solve it. And I think about that with everything that's going on with NAR right now. I think the people who are coming through it better are just jumping in and trying to do the best they can, and learn as much as they can, and not stand on the sideline and go, God, I hate this is happening. Oh, what are we going to do? All that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that goes didn't he say Warren Buffett said, crap, I'm trying to find it in the slides right now. Oh, found it. Predicting the rain doesn't count. Building the ark does.
Yes. So true.
I love that. So true. Yeah. And speaking of, so they shared some great slides with us, and Kate, I just texted them to you. I was thinking if we could put them in the show notes, that way, if you want to learn more about there's way too much for us to go through on an episode, but if you want to look at the slides, we'll link them in the show notes so that you can see, because he did a great job talking about the 7 areas of stress, like the 7 areas to stress test for toughness, like your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, and business. And he kind of breaks those down. So they're great slides. If you want to look at them, we can link them.
Yeah, love that. And one thing I would say too that I'm noticing, speaking of, the NAR thing that's going on right now, is our agents, some of them aren't taking it as serious as they need to. And
I agree with that.
Pretty hefty consequences like I've never seen before in our industry.
Yep.
I mean,
big time.
I couldn't even believe that, agents are being faced with this. And so, the offices are offering training after training after training, but the agents have to show up. And if you're not showing up for education, man, go get in the middle of it, because this is serious. I mean, people can lose their license over this. And I don't think we've ever faced in the history of my being in the business almost 40 years, I've never had something this serious have this much consequences attached to it.
Well, I can tell you one of the things we're getting ready to do in our offices was my biggest takeaway from the multi-market center operator mastermind was a lot of these brokerages, I mean, not just KW offices, brokerages around the country are having all their agents like sign something saying like, I was offered the training, I attended the training, like I've read the new forms, I understand what's going on, because the DOJ is really, they're going to they're cracking down. And it's, I mean, I think we'll see fines like we've never seen fines before over this stuff. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see, but I totally agree. If they're not paying attention and taking it seriously, they definitely need to, because it is a huge change. It is a huge change. That's not a scary change, but it's just a change. Like, we need to be aware of it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of agents are thinking, I'll just figure out a workaround around it. And I think they're going to be checking documentation and stuff like that. It's not, there won't be no workaround.
That's exactly what we heard from a broker who is one of the 8 brokers that got to be in the room on the board with the DOJ when they were going through all of this. And she said that, oh man, shoot, I think I have it in my notes, but she said that she's never walked in a room and been easily intimidated, that she doesn't get intimidated easily or anything like that. And she said that I can tell you that they will enforce, and that she said I left feeling very intimidated, that they're going to be on it, very on it. In fact, supposedly on August 18th, they started mailing out the millions of the class action postcards to everybody. And so like even talking about, the people that we've sold a house to are going to start getting all these postcards in the mail, and like how we can, communicate with them and explain to them what's going on. But she said they mean business, and like our agents they do need to be serious about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about tough times. These are tough times, but we have the answers. We have lots of education. We have the proper way to do it. You just got to lean in, get in the middle of it, figure it out. And here's the beautiful thing. Everybody's got a level playing field.
Yeah.
One person doesn't get to not do it and the other has to. Yeah. We all have to do it. So let's get in there, figure out what the professional way to do it is, and just go then figure out based on doing it, what objections, obstacles are we going to come up against? And then as a group, we've always been good about figuring out how to overcome those objections with our clients, and we will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. Yeah, totally true. Awesome. Well, go check out the show notes if you want all the slides from Tough Times. There was some really good info. Yeah,
and I'd post those and read them every day.
Yeah, we might need to.
All right, thank you, Dana. Y'all have fun at the U.S. Open, and I will see you next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.